The Las Vegas Strip is posting record revenues, throwing billion-dollar grand openings, and telling you everything is fine. But walk past the velvet rope, ignore the fountain show for a minute, and look at what is actually happening on that floor. The dealers are gone, the people are gone, and the locals, the ones who built this city with their loyalty and their wallets for 50 years, they are not just gone, they are laughing, and today, I am going to show you exactly why. Hi, my name is Michael, and this is Old Vegas Legends. The unspoken contract is dead. There was a deal. Nobody wrote it down, nobody signed it, but everybody understood it. For decades, Las Vegas operated on one of the most beautiful unspoken agreements in American life. You come here, you bring your money, and we will treat you like a king. Not because you are rich, I say not because you are famous, but simply because you showed up. That was the deal. Think about what that actually meant in practice. You are a retired postal worker from Cleveland. You saved up a few $100s all year. You land at McCarran on a Friday afternoon in, say, 1992. And from the moment you walk through those casino doors, the entire machine bends toward you. The parking is free. The room is $39 a night. The buffet is $8, and they are not skimping on the prime rib. The cocktail waitress knows your name by Saturday morning, and the dealer at the $5 blackjack table is actually rooting for you to win, because he knows that if you win, you tip, and if you tip, everybody goes home happy. That was the contract. The house had the edge, yes. Vegas was never a charity. But the edge was fair. It was honest. And in exchange for that honest edge, the city gave you an experience that made you feel like the trip was worth every single penny, even when you lost. Now, I want you to hold that image in your mind. Hold it tight. Because what I am about to describe is so different from that picture that it almost does not feel like the same city. Today, that postal worker from Cleveland does not exist in the Strip's business model. He has been reclassified. He is no longer a guest. He's not even really a customer in the traditional sense. He is what corporate boardrooms now call a low-value player. And in the new Las Vegas, low-value players are not welcomed. They are tolerated at best and actively discouraged at worst. How do you discourage someone without telling them to leave? Simple. You make the math work against them at every single touch point. You raise the minimums, you tilt the odds, you charge them to park, you charge them a resort fee, you replace the smiling dealer with a machine, you swap the $8 buffet for a $45 brunch experience. And then you stand back and watch them do the math themselves. And here is the thing. They do the math. These are not stupid people. These are retirees, veterans, teachers, factory workers. People who have been balancing budgets their entire lives. They do the math in about 15 minutes, and then they make a decision that the Strip never anticipated. They leave, not just for the weekend. They leave forever. And on their way out, they tell their friends. This is not a theory. This is not nostalgia talking. This is the foundational crack in the Strip's entire economic structure. And every other problem I'm going to walk you through today flows directly from this single broken promise. The unspoken contract is dead, and the Strip killed it themselves. The fee trap, death by 1,000 surcharges. All right, let us talk money, real numbers. Because I think a lot of people still do not fully understand just how dramatic the financial transformation of a Strip visit has become. And I am not talking about inflation. Inflation is everywhere. I get it. This is something different. This is architectural. This is deliberate. Let me paint you a picture. You are planning a 4-night trip to Las Vegas. You go online and you find a room at a major Strip property. Maybe it is a Caesars property, maybe MGM. Forward, the rate on the screen says $99 a night. And you think, not bad. 4 nights, that is under $400. Pute for the room. I can work with that. Here is what actually happens when you check out. That $99 room comes with a resort fee. And we are not talking about the old days when resort fees were maybe $15 and at least pretended to cover something useful. We are talking $45, $50, sometimes $55 per night. Add Clark County tax on top of that fee, and you are looking at nearly $63 a night just in fees. Your $99 room is now $162 a night before you have touched a single casino chip. But we are just getting started. You drove to Vegas because you wanted to save money on flights. You pull into the parking garage, and $25. maybe 30. At some properties during a busy weekend, you are looking at $50 just to park your car at the casino, where you are about to spend your money. Think about that for 1 second. They are charging you for the privilege of coming to give them money. 20 years ago, if you had told anyone in this industry that Las Vegas would one day charge guests to park, they would have laughed you out of the room. Nobody is laughing now. Then you sit down for dinner. You are not being extravagant. You order a burger and a beer. The burger is $28. The beer is $14. And then the bill arrives, and there it is. That little line item that nobody warned you about. The CNF charge, concession and franchise fee, down nearly 5% added to your total, for reasons that require a law degree to fully understand. Nobody told you about it. Nobody asked you if you wanted it. It just appears on the bill like a penalty for eating. By the time you check out after 4 nights, you budgeted around $400 for the room. The actual room charge alone, after fees and taxes, is closer to $650, and that is before a single meal, a single drink, a single slot machine, or a single show. Now here is the part that really gets me, and I say this as someone who has studied this industry for a long time. The resort fee itself is perhaps the most cynically constructed financial instrument in the history of American hospitality. Because here is what it does. It allows the hotel to advertise a low room rate, get you in the door, and get you to commit, and then collect the real price once you are already there with your bags unpacked. It is not a fee. It is a trap with a welcome mat on it. I spoke with a couple from Arizona recently, retired school teachers, been coming to Vegas since 1985. They told me they used to budget $600 for a long weekend and come home feeling like they had lived like royalty. Last year, they budgeted $1,500 for the same type of trip. Same number of nights. They came home feeling like they had been processed through a machine. Their words, not mine. And this is the economic violence of the resort fee era. It does not just cost people money, it costs them the feeling. And once you lose the feeling, no fountain show in the world is going to bring it back. And the games are rigged, and not in the fun way. Now I want to be very careful here because when I say the games are rigged, I am not talking about anything illegal. The casinos are not cheating. Everything happening on those floors is technically legal, fully disclosed, and approved by the Nevada Gaming Control Board. But there is a massive difference between legal and fair. And what has happened to the games on the Las Vegas Strip over the last 15 years is one of the quietest and most devastating betrayals of the customer in modern casino history. Let us start with blackjack, because blackjack is where this story is most painful. For most of Las Vegas history, blackjack paid 3-2 on a natural. Meaning, if you bet $10 and got dealt a blackjack, the casino paid you $15. Simple, elegant, fair. If a skilled player who understood basic strategy could hold the house edge below 1%. That is as close to an even game as you will find in any casino anywhere. It is the reason blackjack built loyalties that lasted generations. People felt like they had a real shot. Now, walk the strip in 2025. At the vast majority of low and mid-limit tables, you will see a small placard that says 6-5. That same $10 bet now pays $12 instead of $15. $3 quietly removed from every single natural. It does not sound like much until you understand that this one change alone more than triples the casino's advantage on that game. It is not a minor adjustment. It is a fundamental rewriting of the agreement between the house and the player. And then there is roulette. Single zero wheels used to be the standard. The house edge on a single zero wheel is 2.7%. Fair enough, then double zero became the American standard, pushing that edge to 5.26%. Uncomfortable, but tolerable. Now, at the entrance of several major strip properties, you will find 000 roulette wheels. The house edge on a 000 wheel is approximately 7.7%. That is worse than most slot machines, and they put them right at the door. So the first thing you see when you walk in is the worst bet in the building, dressed up to look like a good time. I have to be honest with you here, and maybe this is just old Vegas instincts talking, but when a casino puts its worst game at the front door, it is not an accident. It is a philosophy. It is a statement about who they think their customer is. They are not building these floors for people who understand the game. They are building them for tourists who do not. And the people who do understand the game, the regulars, the retirees, the veterans, the loyal players who spent 30 years on these floors. They see it immediately. They feel the insult. and they drive 20 minutes to a local's casino, where the 3-to-2 tables are still running, and the single zero wheels is in the corner waiting for them like an old friend. The ghost town behind the neon. Here is where the story gets really interesting, because if you only read the headlines, you would think Las Vegas has never been healthier. Record gaming revenue, billion-dollar resort openings, sold-out concert venues. The Nevada Gaming Control Board releases its monthly numbers, and the financial press treats them like proof that everything is fine. But look closer. Look at the actual visitor volume data, and a very different picture emerges. From January through June of 2025, Las Vegas saw 7.3% fewer tourists than the same period the previous year. In June alone, visitor numbers dropped 11.3%. July dropped another 12%. Run those numbers all the way through, and you were looking at nearly 1 million fewer people visiting the city in the first half of 2025 compared to 2024. 1 million people gone. And here is the part that should make every executive on the Strip lose sleep at night. Hotel occupancy fell by 15% in June of 2025. About 15%. These are not small fluctuations. These are structural shifts. And how did the Strip respond to 15% lower occupancy? They raised room rates. The average room rate climbed to over $163 even as those rooms sat empty. Because the new strategy is not volume, it is extraction. Fewer guests paying more, delivering the same or better revenue on the spreadsheet, even as the floor gets quieter and quieter. On the surface, the math works, until it does not. Because a quiet floor is not just an aesthetic problem, a quiet floor means fewer tips for bartenders, fewer shifts for servers, fewer reasons for the experienced cocktail waitress who has worked that property for 22 years to stay. And when she leaves, or she takes 22 years of institutional knowledge and human warmth with her. A kiosk cannot replace that. An app cannot replace that. There are currently 4,300 jobs that vanished from Las Vegas hospitality between July and August of 2025 alone. 4,300 people. And these were not all layoffs in the traditional sense. This is what happens when you combine reduced shifts, eliminated positions, hiring freezes, and the quiet targeting of experienced mid-level managers who, and this is the part that should make you angry, were told their experience was a liability, not an asset. A liability, because their salary was higher than an algorithm. The neon is still on, the fountains are still going, but behind that curtain, the ghost town is spreading. Yazid, the corporate playbook. Efficiency over soul. I want to talk about something that most travel videos and tourism reports will not touch, because it requires you to think about Las Vegas not as a destination, but as a laboratory, a testing ground for a corporate philosophy that, if it succeeds here, will be exported to every hotel, every restaurant, every service business in America. They are calling it innovation. I am calling it what it is: the systematic removal of the human being from the hospitality experience. Here's how the playbook works. And I want to be specific because vague complaints about corporations are easy to dismiss. This is not vague. At MGM Resorts, 35% of all guest check-ins are now handled through a phone app. Fine, some people prefer that. But here is the next number. Approximately 80% of initial customer interactions across their properties are now managed by AI and automated front-end technology. 80%. Think about what that means for the person whose entire job was to be the human face of that hotel. Gone. Replaced by a screen with a chatbot that calls itself your concierge. At Resorts World, mobile check-in adoption jumped from around 10 to 15%, all the way to 44% in a very short window. They became the first resort on the Strip to roll out room keys through Apple Wallet, eliminating the need for physical key cards. And they market this as a luxury feature, as progress. Meanwhile, there is nobody at the front desk to look you in the eye and tell you to have a wonderful stay. The Venetian, the now under control of private equity firm Apollo Global Management, has been conducting what I can only describe as a slow-motion purge. Since the summer of 2025, they have been letting people go in small, targeted groups, always fewer than 50 at a time. And if you know your labor law, you know exactly why that number matters. The Federal WARN Act requires 60 days notice for mass layoffs of 50 or more employees at a single site. By staying just below that threshold, they avoid the legal requirement, and more importantly, they avoid the headlines. The people being targeted are not underperformers. The cuts specifically go after the experienced mid-level managers. The people with 10, 12, 15 years in the building. The VP of operations who knew every regular by face and by name. The national marketing director who had spent 15 years building relationships. These are the people who made the luxury feel real, and they are being told, politely, that their knowledge is a liability on the balance sheet. One manager, speaking anonymously after being let go, said something I have not been able to stop thinking about. He said, "Apollo does not see value in me knowing a guest's favorite slot machine. They see a salary that can be cut." And that sentence, right there, is the most honest description of the new Las Vegas I have ever heard. This is not evolution. This is not progress. This is a beautiful hollow machine being built where a living, breathing city used to stand. And I guarantee you, the executives signing off on these decisions have never once had to stand at a kiosk for 40 minutes because the machine kept freezing while they were exhausted from a 5-hour flight. Meanwhile, locals are living their best life. I promised you, locals are laughing. And they genuinely are. So let us talk about why. Because when an industry abandons its values, the market does not disappear. It just finds somewhere else to go. Drive 15 minutes west to Red Rock. Head south to the M Resort or South Point. What you find there is not a consolation prize. It is not the budget option for people who could not afford the Strip. It is the Las Vegas that the Strip used to be. Thriving, packed, and completely unbothered by what is happening on the boulevard. The parking is free, the blackjack pays 3 to 2. The staff knows the regulars by name. Not because an algorithm flagged the account, but because that pit boss has watched the same retired teacher sit at that same table every Tuesday for 9 years. That is hospitality. That is the real thing. Station casinos built their entire model on this. Not spectacle, not whales, trust. And in a market where the Strip has spent 15 years systematically destroying trust, that is the most valuable commodity in any building. Every customer the Strip pushes away eventually lands at a local's casino. And once they land there, they never go back. That retired firefighter who cannot remember his last Strip visit, he is not an outlier. He is a trend, the point of no return. Here's the part that nobody in the corporate suites wants to talk about. The customers they lost are not coming back. And I do not mean that emotionally, I mean it structurally. The behavioral patterns have already changed, and those changes are self-reinforcing in a way that no marketing campaign, no fountain renovation, and no celebrity residency announcement is going to reverse. Think about how real loyalty works, not the app, not the points program, not the little card in your wallet with the casino logo on it. Real loyalty, the kind that brought the same families back to the same property for 20, 30 years running. That loyalty was never built on a rewards tier. It was built on a feeling, on memory, on the very specific sensation of walking into a place that was genuinely happy to see you. You cannot manufacture that with a kiosk. You cannot code it into a chatbot. And once it is gone, once that customer has moved on and built new habits somewhere else, the window to win them back does not slowly close. It slams shut. Now let us look at the numbers, because the numbers do not lie even when the press releases do. International visitors, historically one of the most valuable revenue streams this city has ever had, have fallen sharply. Some Canadian airlines reported passenger drops of over 60% on Las Vegas routes in 2025. 60%. And before anyone blames travel policies or exchange rates, understand this. Perception drove that number. The word spread. Las Vegas as a destination that treats you fairly, that offers honest value for your dollar, that actually wants you there. That perception has been quietly dying for years, and perceptions, once they harden, do not soften easily. Say the domestic story is no better. Car traffic from California on the I-15 dropped 4.3% in June of 2025 alone. California, the single largest source of drive-in visitors in the entire history of this city. The people who used to throw the bags in the trunk on a Friday afternoon and make that 4-hour run from Los Angeles or Bakersfield or San Diego, they are doing the math now. And the math is not working out in the Strip's favor. Here is what makes this genuinely irreversible rather than just a bad stretch. The alternatives have improved at exactly the same pace that the Strip has declined. Online gaming expanding, tribal casinos investing billions, local options growing in cities that never had them before. The Strip used to hold a near monopoly on the casino resort experience in America. That monopoly is finished, and they handed it away themselves, one resort fee at a time. The gaming revenue headlines will stay strong for a while. Whales do not care about a $55 resort fee. But the foundation under those numbers, the millions of middle-class Americans who were the backbone of this economy for half a century, that foundation is cracking. And when it finally gives way, no concert, no rebrand, and no billion-dollar lobby renovation is going to fill that hole. So that is the story. The Strip is posting its numbers, throwing its parties, and telling you everything is fine. And out in Henderson and Summerland and on the edges of this desert city, the locals are sitting at 3-2 tables in free parking lots, drinking reasonably priced cocktails and laughing. I know which side of that story I want to be on. Yes, and I think you do too. If this resonated with you, if you have lived this story firsthand, I want to hear from you. Drop your experience in the comments below. Tell me when you stopped going to the Strip. Tell me where you go instead. Tell me about the moment you did the math and walked away. Because this channel exists for you, not for the corporations, not for the press releases, for you. My name is Michael, this is Old Vegas Legends, and we will see you in the next one. Watch your wallet out there.